Okay. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Yeah? Nice. So today we'll be talking about how Aimpoint Digital helped Westat achieve success on Databricks using FinOps, essentially. My name's Dylan Ford, and with me is Brian Sokol from Westat. As I mentioned, my name's Dylan Ford. I lead the Databricks practice for Aimpoint Digital. I'm also a Databricks MVP. I've been with Aimpoint for about 3 years, growing the Databricks practice, rolling out projects, building accelerators, that sort of thing. Prior to Aimpoint, I worked with Disney for about 4 years, rolling out Databricks there for their theatrical and parks divisions. Aimpoint Digital is a market leader in analytics. We cover everything from data engineering, infrastructure, operations research, mathematical optimization, and we have a very strong generative AI and machine learning practice. We were fortunate enough to win the Databricks Partner of the Year back-to-back, so that 2024 and last night awarded 2025. We also have a very strong culture, so you can see here we have a high employee retention rate and people love working for Aimpoint, so always hiring as well, so look us up.
Hi, I'm Brian Sokol with Westat. I'm the VP of Data Architecture and Data Engineering. Westat does public policy research primarily for the US federal government. That includes a lot of the HHS world, so CDC and the CMS, and as well NIH, as well as Social Security Administration, Department of Labor, Department of Education, and so forth. I've been in the kind of intersecting space between data and technology on the one hand and public policy on the other, sort of always working in my career in that nexus, including working for a long time on homelessness data as well as Social Security disability insurance. And I spent during the COVID years doing a lot of work on public health. Westat has been in the data collection and data analysis business for over 60 years. And through that, we've done many contracts, again, primarily for the federal government. And we have, therefore, a very strong culture in our client work on data and data analysis. We have hundreds of statisticians, lots of PhD economists and epidemiologists, and all these kinds of things. So we've been working kind of old school data collection and data analysis for many years. As I like to say, we've been doing data products before it was cool. We just called it delivering data. But now we wanted to kind of up our game and get into the newer spaces. As an example of some of our projects, just so you get a sense of the differences and the scale of some of the things that we do. We have one big project called NAEP, which is National Assessment of Educational Progress. You might have heard of it. It's been in the news as the nation's report card, where we actually go out and we do testing of approximately 250,000 students in the 4th, 8th, and 12th grades. And this has been going on since 1969. This data has been collected, so we can see over the years how students have progressed. It's also the only thing that we have as a country to be able to compare educational progress across states. So every state has their own testing, but there's no way to really determine how Massachusetts is doing against Oregon or something like that, except for through this project. So there's a lot, you can understand, a lot of data collection effort in there, but also a lot of sensitivity. We're dealing with student records because we also want to collect their demographics and other things about them and their socioeconomic status. So it's very sensitive data. Similarly, in another case, we have the MEPS project, which is the medical expenditure panel study, which basically is the source of information on medical expenditures throughout the United States. So we do lots of data collection from households on where they spent their money, and we're hoping, we just bidding Databricks on the medical provider component. So again, this is kind of a national sample of all Medicare expenditures. And just a third, I'm just trying to give you a flavor of the different types of data, is the cancer testing support unit, which basically helps researchers that are doing cancer treatment studies to enroll people into their studies and roll out protocols and do the research that they need to do. And we kind of provide centralized support for that. So all these are different types of things. Next slide, please. That we do, and there are about 100 other projects that we're doing at Westat in any given year, all somewhat much smaller, with just a few people doing the research, one-time analysis, some with streaming data with data pipelines and large analytics and machine learning and all these kinds of things. So what we needed when we decided that we wanted to kind of create one single enterprise platform, we had a bunch of challenges. Up until then, we've basically created custom environments for each project based kind of on their specific highly tailored needs. And a lot of the stuff was on-prem because they developed over time, and they've kind of all built on themselves in a kind of incremental way. But we wanted to say, now we're going to be using one platform to do all of our work. So one key challenge was data segregation. Now, I hear a lot at these conferences about breaking down silos, which in some ways, we need to do, but most of all, in our case, actually, our challenge was to make sure our data was segregated, because we have all these restrictions that are coming from our contracts, and just due to the sensitivity of the data, we needed to make sure that our education data was not mixed in with our health data. Our clients had requirements that they couldn't be intermingled. But it's a bit of a challenge because we also have people working, our developers and our data scientists and data analysts work across all of these things. Maybe in a day they might be working on 4 or 5 different projects. So we needed tightly controlled governance in order to maintain that segregation. And also it's not so simple as that, because at the same time there's also a lot of data sources, public use data sources like census data or geography units, things like that, that we don't want to have downloaded and each time for every new project, that we wanted to be able to share and develop on top of. So that was one key challenge that we were looking at. The other key challenge is that we have all these projects, and once we get them, the government wants us to start working on them yesterday, right? We get it, and then we can't say, oh, it's going to take us 6 months to set up our infrastructure. We needed almost a push-button way to start up new projects, which meant figuring out what data sources we need and connecting to them. We needed to code them in order to kind of track them from the work that we're doing into which project it was doing for us, so we can bill it later. We needed to be able to code where the data is going to be stored, all these different things all at once, and of course setting up all the different users and their roles. So we needed to be able to do that in basically less than a day for each new project, so we can get up and running. And thirdly, I kind of already alluded to this, but we needed to be able to track costs. So if we have people going from working on one project and then toggling to do another project for an hour because they got interrupted and needed something immediately, and then going back, we needed to know exactly which compute within our platform was being attributed to which project. And similarly, if on the data storage side, we deploy on AWS, we needed to also associate the same costs for the data storage with the compute costs. And people needed to be able to monitor tightly and kind of have complete observability into those, how much cost we're spending on a monthly basis in order to know whether we're staying in budget and take action if we need to. So all of these kind of key challenges, were a lot as we started to bring up the platform. So we did turn to our partner, and he's going to explain. Dylan is now going to explain a little bit how we got it done.
Thanks, Brian. So a lot of the challenges that Brian was talking about can be solved by FinOps. So what is FinOps? FinOps is essentially applying DevOps principles like automation, observability, streamlined processes. So applying those to the way that you operate to maximize value and increase accountability across your engineering, your finance teams, and your business users. The FinOps Foundation basically built a framework that enables FinOps, and so they break this down into 3 different categories: operate, inform, and optimize. So I'll walk through each of these and how we enabled FinOps on Databricks for Westat. So the operate portion of the framework is essentially reducing processes through automation and building out your data culture so that you have like a shared responsibility in tracking costs. The inform section is basically ensuring that you're tracking all of the consumption, all of the activities that are being undertaken on Databricks are being tracked so that you can assign them to workloads. And optimize is essentially just reducing, minimizing wasted spend and maximizing performance. So the way that we built out the operate portion of FinOps is essentially using Terraform. So we built essentially the 2 ways that we could have solved this problem for Westat was either build a workspace for each project, which would have been an enormous overhead, and the other way we could have done it is through Unity Catalog. So essentially, through Terraform, we're building a Unity Catalog as a sort of a micro environment. So each project is essentially equivalent to a catalog. So with Terraform, we're deploying a catalog, we're deploying AWS S3 buckets, we're adding tags, we're creating different groups. So there's a project admin group, there's a developer group, we're pre-creating compute, and all of this is enabled with Terraform, which is essentially just infrastructure as code. One of the challenges with Terraform, though, is that it's very easy to get software bloat, essentially. As you build out each module, you end up repeating a lot of the code in Terraform. And so what Terragrunt does is essentially just enable you to build a template of Terraform code, and you then use Terragrunt to define the configuration that is then applied to that Terraform template. And so it essentially just reduces a lot of the overhead, a lot of the code that you have to define. The inform category, essentially, now that we have all of that metadata and all of that consumption data tracked at a granular level, we're able to build an observability dashboard. So with the dashboard, Westat's able to look at each project individually. We use system tables. So system tables some system tables are enabled by default on a Databricks workspace. I'd recommend, if you're not using all of the system tables, that you look at how to enable all of them. There's a simple script that you can run that just enables all of your system tables. It gives you a lot of insights into what's running on your Databricks platform. Yeah. And then the final section is optimized with Databricks. So we use a lot of out-of-the-box features. Databricks provides a lot of great functionality. So we default to like serverless compute. We use managed tables. There's a lot of great features in using managed tables. You get like optimize commands run automatically. Another thing that we've built into this cost tracking dashboard is budgets. So each project has a budget that's the project owner can set, so they're able to track the costs at a granular level against the budget. So they're able to identify if the consumption patterns that they're seeing match what the goals of the project are. And so all of this is through a self-service analytics dashboard that we built for Westat. So now that we've deployed all of this platform, Westat's already seeing their customer data being secured. They're already starting to charge back to their clients. And we're already seeing innovation be accelerated on the platform. I've got a QR code for a blog that we wrote on FinOps. Encourage you to check that out. We will be writing a technical series on everything that you saw today. We'll be writing more blogs on all of that. So encourage you to look out for those. And then over to Brian.
So now what we're able to do is go to our clients, and we've kind of branded our own product as Westalytics. That's Westat and analytics, obviously, and we kind of can sell that we can do everything that they need. If you look at the center, in terms of their data pipelines, that those are built in, and we have kind of the most powerful tool on the market to do data acquisition, engineering, all of the analysis that we've always done, as well as AI. And I actually had a little bit of an argument with the graphics people, because I wanted to say that AI was going to go across the spectrum, because we also can do AI using AI as part of the ingestion and engineering. But in any case, as well as data dissemination, which can be delivering data products, or it can be bringing people onto our platform. We're creating a workbench so that analysts who are our clients can go in and do their own analyses. So we can do that on the project level, but we also have these enterprise functionality, and what you get when you get Westalytics is you get Westat's expertise and our quality and our kind of reputation of being in this market for 60 years, and we're built on Databricks, which provides a central way to bring the scalability and the security and the governance, as well as, of course, the topic of this conversation, which was the cost consciousness of being able to monitor for cost, which was sort of what this federal government is certainly very, very interested in. So that's what we have for you today, except to remind you to sign up to take the survey and feedback, and we're here for any questions.